Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamey Daddy channel. So I've been wanting to discuss this topic for a very long time. And I've just been trying to find basically the right words, the right way to title this issue at hand. And I think I finally have come to a place where I feel like I can safely talk about this and making sure I consider some of the much important issues. And here is what spurred this up. A lot of my videos, you guys know, come from comments that you guys make in the comment section. It comes from me reading extensively, what the player base is basically asking for, what the player base may be feeling, what the player base may have observed, and all of these other things. And a lot of the comments that I've seen have come from concerns that the game went through so many iterations of nerfs of viable items. In some cases, these items were not even overpowered. Now, yes, we have had items in the Division 2 or sets or builds that were very powerful, but then after a while they got changed or got nerfed. Okay, that's one thing. And then we had items that were viable. This is not things that were just scaling out of hand, but because their viability allowed for them to basically be the preferred method in terms of weapons and builds, the development team went ahead to use their carrot on the stick approach and decided to nerf those things while trying to, point people to other things. Now, the carrot on the stick approach is something that I've heard a lot of people in the community say. And I have to tell you, in the last two State of the Games, one of the developers said carrot on the stick. Yes. He said carrot on the stick. This is the guy who designed the capacitor, exotic, and the Scorpio. He's the one who said that. So they do have this ideology and philosophy, and I've just been waiting for them to come out and actually say it, and they finally did. One of the developers just spilled the beans while he was just excited and talking about something. But then I think this is where we as the community have to come in and say, developers, you guys need to correct this methodology, because you can take an example from other games that are just continuing to make waves, continuing to do very well, that if you even look at the way their priorities have been, they've been able to deploy an update for the next generation already because their community is very vibrant. And I need to also present the same video game that I always present when I compare the way they do things with the Division 2, even though it's a very different video game. And you guys already know, yeah, it's coming, it's Mortal Kombat 11. There it is. And the reason I constantly say this is because this is a game that I have just as much extensive playtime as I do the Division. And so it is where I have the experience. It's where I think I have enough knowledge to be able to find the similar threads between both games, and how I feel that the Division can take notes from the developers over at NetherRealms. So massive, open your notebooks and go back and take notes from NetherRealms. NetherRealms is not a small studio. It's not a new studio to the art. If you guys know, Mortal Kombat is a 27-year-old franchise. 27 years, and they've had basically the same director and creator of this franchise, Ed Boon. He's been at the helm and has been looking for the right people, employing the right people to constantly make this game what it is. And they have very good conversation and communication pathways with their community as well. It's not just only the Division who does talk to its community. The developers at NetherRealms do speak to the community. The guys who design the characters, who design their moves, who balance these things, they come out and they talk about the reasonings. They also have patches and patch notes, just like we do as well. And whenever they take out, the action to nerf a character or to nerf something in the game, they do it with a lot of care and consideration. It's a very thoughtful process. They don't go ahead and just obliterate a character just because the character is causing, other people to complain. No. One of the things that is expected of games like these, or in terms of, PvP or, competitive or, player versus player interaction, is that players at some point will get to the place where they can counter these things. But that doesn't mean the developers leave it alone, or that doesn't mean that the developers render it useless. They make very incremental changes that still shows that they care about these, and they can actually go ahead and still leave it to be a viable, item in the game. And the example that I'm going to give is an example. Me and a content creator that's here in the community identity, once in a while, we'll just hang out on Discord with a bunch of the other guys and we'll just be talking. And I think one day I was streaming my Mortal Kombat 11 gameplay to him. He's like, I want to see. He was so interested. He was like, I've never really seen you PvP before. So I was PvPing and smack talking at, the opponents and stuff. And he was laughing. But I told him something. I said, you see, this is Jackie Briggs. This is one of the characters in the game that used to be very, very strong. And she's actually been nerfed and changed multiple times. And I was playing against an opponent who beat me. And I said, this is a nerfed version of Jackie Briggs. She is still strong and powerful and viable. But at the same time, she is not overly broken as she once was. And so was Johnny Cage. And so was Sonya Blade. These characters were very strong at the onset of the game. And I started playing the game day one. In fact, one of my most watched Mortal Kombat tutorials was a tutorial on Sonya Blade. And if I go back and watch that tutorial, there are combos that I, showed people in that, in that video that you can't pull off anymore because the character received that change. But it did not negate the fact that the character is still useful and viable. In fact, the MK11 complete roster is almost useful and viable at this point in the game. And for a fighting game, which many fighting games span at least minimum 5 to 7 years, and the game is just basically almost 2 years into its iteration, that is insane. And that's amazing that they could balance a roster which is so intricate, and every single different character is interacting with different aspects and different characters, and they're able to do that. And I feel like our developers at Tom Clancy's The Division 2 at Massive, I think they need to take that very careful approach. I feel like sometimes some of the things come out and it's either used as a dangling device to bring players into the game and then they nerf it, or it's rushed out and it's not carefully considered as to how it's going to balance with the entirety of the meta of the game. I think what they need to do, and I've been talking about this, is it might be time for them to have an algorithm that measures basically every single parameter in the game and how it'll interact. So they need to have something that is a catalog. That's, if you're going to design something, you need to be able to plug in its skill-based power, its, tank-based, or I would say defensive power, and its offensive power in there. And that algorithm needs to go in and compute, with everything else in order to spit out the possible viable numbers. This is going to take a lot of work to do. This is not something that you can do in, perhaps a year or something. You need some really smart people on the ground to do this. But I almost believe that Mortal Kombat 11 has something like this in play, because every character comes out with unique moves, unique, damage and unique all that stuff. But it almost feels like every time these new characters come out, they have a certain aspect of balance to them that you can counter because they fit into a category. And I think that's the one thing that The Division might be missing. And I usually do these comparisons. And like I say, I could compare any other game out there. I could pick any other game. And many people will say, well, Mortal Kombat 11 is a different game. You're telling me? I play both of them, and I know. But I think from playing both of them, I've seen, and like I said at the beginning of this video, the threads that, basically run through both games and where they have certain similarities that are key. Many video games are actually very similar. Video game is based on philosophy, in my opinion, the art that goes into it. And so you're going to see similarities in many, many games. I can show you and draw similarities from some random weird games out there with The Division. In fact, another content creator, I saw his thumbnail. I didn't watch the video yet. Forgive me. And I think it's Rogue Gold or so. And he made a video about The Division basically talking about a few, changes that could be made, and actually drew some inference from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which is a game that I've actually played and beaten. I've even covered it on the channel. I'm actually going through my second playthrough. So I really was interested in watching that video. I think I may have saved it to watch later because I wanted to hear what he had to say about how the developers can iterate, multiple possibilities. But I think the basics is that they create a system where they can plug in every single factor that they spit out. This might not be something they execute in the Division 2. Might be a Division 3 iteration. But at the end of the day, it's something that needs to be done because you don't want to be chasing your player base away from, the fact that they've gotten items and then the items that they have are no longer useful. So now they have to go farm other items. No, bring out items that are stronger than their items, make their items still viable, and then they can also farm the new stuff. It's not a smart play to go ahead and just throw away everything that people have, basically worked for. Because if you think about it, it's the same amount of time that you put in farming your very nice gear that the other person puts into learning a character and mastering that character. If you kind of want to look at it that way, it's all about playtime, if you feel me. So people who learn and master Jackie Briggs, yes, there are some iterations that they might not be able to pull off. People who learn and mastered characters like Johnny Cage and Cassie Cage, yes, they might have to deal with a little bit of a nerf, but it did not negate their character where they have to go pick up and master another character, because that will be insane. You have to master that same parameter that you were using, or a different parameter, and then also juxtapose with everything else that's in the game coming at you. And I think this is why a lot of players basically drop the game and say, nah, we're not dealing with this. And I know it probably happens in other games like Destiny and stuff. They do nerfs and stuff. But that practice, if it doesn't stop, they're going to constantly be this cycle of a waste of RPG looter shooters that constantly nerf stuff and lose their player base. And over, a period of a few years, just like how Battle Royales got, really weary and tiresome, they're also going to get to that point where they're weary and tiresome. And basically the fighting games are going to continue to keep their player base, grow them, and continue to remain stronger. Look at Tekken 7. I don't play that game, but and I can't really comment much on it, but I do follow the community very closely. And I can tell you that, they don't even, it doesn't seem like they have a Tekken 8, even at the back of their minds, because they're just constantly making money from that IP, and they'll keep making money for years. You can also say the same about Street Fighter as well. Some of you play Street Fighter, some of you play Tekken, and you can, comment on the comment section and let me know if those games have, nuggets that Massive can actually draw from. They're an RPG looter shooter, company, but, they can learn from anywhere else. But that's my take on this. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Like I said, hopefully we'll see in another video. Thank you for your time. Peace out.